You know that feeling, that soft but sharp ache that lives in your chest when you realize someone hasn't been entirely honest with you, but not in the way you expect. They didn't lie, not outright. The facts they shared were real. The words they spoke matched the events, at least the parts they chose to tell. And yet somewhere between what was said and what was left unsaid, there's a gap. A quiet, invisible space where the truth is incomplete. At first, you can't quite name it. Maybe it's a tone in their voice, a hesitation before they answer, or the way their eyes flicker when a certain detail passes through the air between you. You can't point to a sentence and say, "This is false." You can't lay evidence on the table like you would if they told a blatant lie. All you have is the uneasy weight of something missing. A missing that your heart feels before your mind can explain. It's easy to tell yourself you're imagining things, to brush it off as overthinking, to give them the benefit of the doubt because technically they were truthful. But there's a strange cruelty in partial truths. They give you just enough light to believe you're seeing clearly, while hiding enough in shadow to keep you from knowing what's really there. You're not being gaslit in the traditional sense, but you are being kept in a smaller version of reality, one that's been carefully edited for you. And maybe that's the most dangerous part, because when someone gives you a partial truth, they don't trigger your natural defenses the way a direct lie would. If they lied outright, you'd feel the betrayal clearly. Your anger would rise like fire. You'd question everything. But when the truth is trimmed, softened, or presented with key details missing, it's like someone placing a glass wall in front of you, transparent enough to let you see a future, but solid enough to keep you from ever touching it. Sometimes they do it to protect you. At least that's what they say. They convince themselves and you that the whole truth would hurt too much, that you're not ready for it, that it's kinder to give you only the part you can handle. And maybe in their mind that's true. But kindness without honesty is still control. And control wrapped in soft words can be even harder to spot than outright manipulation. Other times, it's not about protecting you at all. It's about protecting themselves, because the whole truth might expose their flaws, their failures, or their intentions. It might force them to take responsibility for something they'd rather keep in the shadows. And if you knew the entire picture, they might lose you, your trust, your loyalty, your love. So they give you enough to keep you anchored, but not enough to give you the power of choice. It's a strange kind of betrayal, isn't it? Because it doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It seeps into your life quietly, like a slow leak you don't notice until the floor beneath you warps. You don't wake up one day and say, "I can't trust them anymore." Instead, your trust becomes thinner over time, stretched until it's see-through. You start asking fewer questions, not because you trust them more, but because you're afraid of what you'll find if you keep pulling at the threads. And yet deep inside, your intuition keeps speaking. It speaks in the heaviness in your stomach, in the way you remember their exact phrasing when they answered your question, in the way your mind replays moments that felt slightly off but not enough to confront. Intuition is the quiet alarm that goes off when the truth has been edited, when the story doesn't quite add up. But in a world that praises not overreacting and trusting the people you love, we've been taught to silence that alarm. Maybe that's why this kind of half-truth feels so disorienting, because you're not just doubting them, you're doubting yourself. You wonder if you're reading too much into things, if you're seeing patterns that don't exist, if maybe you're the problem. And that self-doubt is exactly what allows the missing pieces to stay missing. It's what keeps you in the smaller version of reality they've chosen for you. I want you to imagine this. You're walking through a long hallway lit only by candles. Every few steps, there's another flame, another point of light showing you the way forward. But the candles stop halfway down the hall. Beyond that, it's nothing but darkness. Someone stands beside you and says, "This is all you need to see. There's nothing beyond this point worth knowing." And because you can't see past the edge of the light, you're left to decide. Do you trust them, or do you risk stepping into the dark alone? That's what it feels like when someone doesn't tell you everything. They place a boundary around your awareness and convince you it's for your own good. And the scariest part, If you never challenge it, you'll never know what's on the other side. But here's the deeper truth, the one most people never say out loud. Being told a partial truth doesn't just affect your understanding of the situation. It affects your relationship with reality itself. You stop seeing the world as a place where you can trust your own perception and start relying on others to tell you what's real. And when that happens, you lose one of the most important things you'll ever own, your ability to decide for yourself. This is why it matters that we talk about this today. Because you may be in a situation right now where you've been told enough to keep you from questioning, enough to stop you from looking deeper, but not enough to give you the full picture. And the longer you live in that space, the harder it becomes to step out of it. By the time we finish this journey together, you'll be able to recognize the signs, the subtle ways people withhold, the moments when a truth is shaped to protect an agenda, the ways your intuition speaks before you have proof. And most importantly, you'll know how to respond, not with paranoia, but with clarity and courage. Because here's the secret most people miss. When someone doesn't tell you everything, it's not just about the information itself, it's about what they believe you're capable of handling. And reclaiming your power starts with proving to yourself first that you can handle the truth, all of it, even the parts that hurt. They will tell you they did it for your own good. They will swear they spared you pain. They will insist that some truths are better left unsaid, that certain details would only have made things harder for you. And maybe they believe that, maybe they even mean it. But belief doesn't erase impact, because the truth they kept from you still shapes your life. It just does so in silence where you can't confront it. Half-truths are not neutral. They carry weight. They bend the way you think, the way you feel, the way you remember. You live your days making decisions based on the version of reality you've been given. And when that version is incomplete, your choices are built on fragile ground. It's like building a house on soil that's already eroding. The structure stands until one day, without warning, it begins to sink. What they don't understand, or maybe what they hope you never realize, is that every withheld detail takes something from you. It might take your ability to protect yourself. It might take your chance to prepare for what's coming. It might take the one piece of understanding that could have made sense of everything else. And when you eventually discover what's been missing, you don't just lose trust in them, you lose trust in yourself. Because here's the thing, when someone hides part of the truth, they're not just saying, I didn't think you needed to know this. They're also saying, I don't believe you can handle it. And that belief seeps into you. It makes you question whether you are capable. It makes you shrink a little, doubt your instincts, second guess your strength. You start thinking maybe you're not as emotionally strong as you thought, because if you were, surely they would have told you. The harm is subtle at first. You start hesitating before speaking up. You wonder if there's more to every story you're told. You hear their explanations, and instead of feeling reassured, you scan for the hidden gap, the thing they didn't say. And in that constant searching, you begin to feel unsafe, even in moments that should feel secure. The truth is, partial truths damage relationships, not because they hide facts, but because they steal certainty. Certainty is what allows us to rest in someone's presence without scanning for danger. It's what lets us believe that when they speak, they are handing us something whole, not something carefully sliced. Without certainty, intimacy becomes impossible, because intimacy requires trust, and trust cannot grow in soil that's been salted with doubt. Think of a time you discovered something important after the fact. Maybe it was a partner who left out part of a story about where they'd been. Maybe it was a friend who didn't tell you what others were saying behind your back. Maybe it was a family member who kept a life-changing secret until you stumbled onto it yourself. Remember the moment you learned? Your mind didn't just hold the new fact. It replayed every past interaction in a different light. Suddenly, memories you thought were safe now carried a new meaning. That's the hidden cost of half-truths. They don't just change the present, they rewrite the past. And that rewriting leaves you feeling like a stranger in your own memories, unsure of what was ever real. But perhaps the deepest wound comes from the quiet isolation it creates. When you know, or even suspect that someone isn't telling you everything, you begin to feel alone in ways that are hard to explain. You can't share the burden of that feeling without sounding paranoid. You can't demand the truth without risking being called suspicious, controlling, or dramatic. So you hold it inside. You smile when you're supposed to. You nod at explanations you don't believe. And that silence builds a wall around you, a wall they might never even see. Here's what makes it even more dangerous. When half-truths become a pattern, you begin to adapt. You learn to live with missing pieces. You convince yourself you're fine without them. You stop asking questions altogether, not out of trust, but out of exhaustion. And this is where the real damage happens, when you've been given so many incomplete stories that you stop believing you deserve complete ones. It's not just about them anymore. It's about you starting to believe that maybe all relationships are like this. That maybe full honesty is a myth, a romantic fantasy people talk about but never really live. And once you believe that, you accept less. You settle for the versions of truth people hand you, even when you know they're incomplete. You live in the candlelight at the end of the hallway, never walking into the dark, never learning what's beyond. But here's something you need to hear. You are not fragile. You are not too weak to hear the whole truth. You do not need to be protected from reality like a child. And any relationship, romantic, familial, or otherwise, that thrives on keeping you in partial awareness is not a safe relationship, no matter how much love exists in it. They will tell you they're protecting you. They will say they didn't want to burden you, that they wanted to shield you from stress, pain, or worry. And maybe that's partly true, but protection is rarely the whole story. People don't hide truths only for your sake. More often, they hide them for their own. If we look closely, there are 3 deep, unspoken forces that drive someone to withhold. They can exist alone or intertwine, but when you understand them, you'll start to see the pattern in the silences. 1. Fear of consequences. This is the most obvious, yet it often hides under layers of justification. They know that if you had the full truth, your reaction could change the balance between you. It could make you angry. It could make you leave. It could make you see them differently, not as the person they want you to see, but as they truly are. And so they weigh the risk in their mind, tell you and face the fallout, or keep part of the truth and preserve the image they've built. The problem is, this is never just about avoiding a fight. It's about control. Because when they decide how much truth you receive, they also decide how much power you have to choose for yourself. They tell themselves they're just avoiding drama, but the reality is they are deciding, without your consent, which version of reality you get to live in. 2. Shame. Not all half-truths are about manipulation. Sometimes they're born from the deep, private shame someone carries. They withhold because speaking the whole truth would mean exposing parts of themselves they'd rather keep buried. Maybe it's a mistake they can't forgive themselves for. Maybe it's a pattern they're ashamed to admit they still repeat. Maybe it's a part of their history that makes them feel small, broken, or unworthy. And shame is powerful. It convinces people that if the truth is known, they will no longer be loved. So they cover it in fragments, thinking that if they hide just enough, they can keep your affection intact. But what they don't realize is that love built on an edited truth is not love at all. It's a performance. And performances can't last forever. Habit. Some people don't even realize they're doing it. They grew up in homes where honesty was dangerous, where revealing too much led to punishment, humiliation, or loss. They learned early that safety meant keeping certain things unsaid. And when they carry that into adulthood, they move through the world trimming the truth without even thinking. These people will insist they're being honest, because to them, withholding details isn't the same as lying. It's just how they've learned to survive. But even if their intent isn't malicious, the impact is still the same. You're living in a reality that isn't whole. And here's the hard truth. Regardless of whether they withhold out of fear, shame, or habit, the effect on you doesn't change. The missing pieces still shape your choices. The absence of full truth still keeps you from seeing the complete picture of your own life. It's tempting to think, if I just love them enough, they'll open up. But love alone doesn't undo fear. It doesn't dissolve shame. It doesn't rewrite the survival patterns they've been living with for years. And if you make it your job to fix their withholding, you'll find yourself pouring energy into a well that can never be filled, not unless they choose to change for themselves. What's more, people who've made a habit of withholding often become skilled at distraction. They'll offer extra details in one area to make you feel like you're getting the whole story. They'll overshare about something harmless so you won't ask about what really matters. They'll give you an 80% truth, knowing that most people stop digging before they find the missing 20%. And yet, here's where the danger doubles. Because once you start noticing these patterns, you'll begin seeing them everywhere, not just in them, but in other people, and even in yourself. You'll remember the times you avoided telling someone the full truth because you didn't want to deal with their reaction. You'll realize that this isn't just about them. This is about the human instinct to control the narrative, to present ourselves in a way that keeps us safe. So the question becomes, if withholding is such a common instinct, how do you protect yourself without becoming paranoid? How do you stay open to love and connection without giving people the power to shape your reality with partial truths? The answer lies in learning to listen in a new way, not just to the words being spoken, but to the pauses between them. Not just to the stories being told, but to the ones that never come up. Not just to the answers you're given, but to the questions they avoid. Learning to protect yourself starts with a different kind of listening, the skill of truth listening. It's the ability to hear the quiet tremor in a voice when something is being held back, to notice the pause that lasts a fraction too long, to sense the weight of words that are carefully chosen to skirt around what really matters. You begin to recognize the subtle red flags in tone, timing, and behavior that whisper when something's being left unsaid. And more importantly, you learn how to respond in a way that protects your trust without turning your relationships into battlefields. Because knowing the truth isn't just about asking harder questions, it's about asking the right ones. Truth doesn't always announce itself in full sentences. Sometimes it hides in the way someone exhales before they speak, in the flicker of their eyes toward the floor, in the way their voice tightens for just one phrase before softening again. Most people hear words, but if you want to live in a reality that's whole and unfiltered, you have to learn to hear around the words, to catch the rhythm of what's spoken and the silence that shapes it. Truth listening begins with presence. When you're truly present, you don't just wait for your turn to talk. You give your full attention to the spaces between their answers. You watch how their body reacts when you touch on a certain subject. You notice if they rush to change the topic, if their laughter feels a little too sudden, if their tone sharpens in defense over something that shouldn't require defense at all. These are the seams where a partial truth starts to show. It also means noticing repetition. When someone repeats the same phrase exactly the same way each time they tell a story, it can be a sign they've rehearsed it, trimming it down to the safe version they're willing to share. Real truth often spills out differently each time, shaped by memory and emotion. Edited truth tends to sound identical, as if they've hit play on a recording, but the most overlooked sign is what I call the invisible subject. It's the thing they never talk about at all, the friend they never mention anymore, the detail they leave out every time, the part of the trip they skip when telling the story. Humans naturally fill in details without being asked, unless that detail threatens to expose what they'd rather keep hidden. And once you spot what's missing, you start realizing that absence speaks louder than words. Now, truth listening isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone you meet. It's about training yourself to hold awareness while staying calm. Instead of accusing or confronting too soon, you simply notice. You file away the patterns. You compare stories over time. You look at the person's consistency more than their charm. Because people who give you the whole truth may still fumble their words, but their overall picture will always remain steady. Those who withhold will keep shifting the frame. The key is learning to respond without creating war. If you believe something's been left unsaid, resist the urge to demand an immediate confession. Instead, create space where honesty feels safe, but where evasion cannot comfortably live. Ask open-ended questions. Not "why didn't you tell me?" but "help me understand this part more." Not "are you hiding something?" but "what else happened that you think I should know?" When you approach with curiosity instead of accusation, you give them a choice: step into the fuller truth, or reveal by their evasion that there's something they can't yet face. Either way, you get clarity without burning the bridge unnecessarily. Because the goal of truth listening is not to catch people. It's to protect your own reality. To make sure you're not living in someone else's edited version of your life. It's about standing in the full light, refusing to be kept at the edge of the hallway, no matter how beautifully they describe the shadows. And once you master this, something changes inside you. You stop fearing what the truth might be. You start realizing that no matter how painful, knowing is always more freeing than not knowing. You stop settling for partial candles and start walking, step by step, into the darkness to light it yourself. The truth is, most people will never hand you every piece of their story. Some will leave out the darkest chapters because they are afraid you'll see them differently. Others will hide the sharp edges because they fear they'll cut the bond between you. And some simply don't know how to live without trimming reality to fit their comfort. But the missing pieces still matter. They matter because your life, your choices, your trust, your love is built on what you know. And when you've been living inside someone else's edited version of reality, you are not living your life, you are living theirs. You may never change the way others choose to tell their truths, but you can choose something for yourself. You can choose to listen differently, to hear the pauses, to see the patterns, to feel the quiet weight of what is not being said. You can choose to step beyond the candlelight, to explore the hallway they told you was empty, and discover what lies in the dark for yourself. This isn't about becoming hard, suspicious, or cold. It's about becoming awake. Because when you are awake, you stop fearing the truth. You stop letting the fear of discomfort keep you from clarity. You stop confusing peace with not knowing, and you start building relationships and a life where honesty isn't partial, where trust isn't fragile, and where your reality is yours alone to shape. Maybe you've been living with a half-truth for a long time. Maybe someone you love has kept something in the shadows, and you've learned to live without that missing piece. But tonight, I hope you remember this. You are not too weak to face the whole truth. You are not too fragile to carry it. And you deserve more than the comfortable version of reality someone else has decided for you. So listen closely, not to catch, not to accuse, but to understand. Notice what is given freely and what is left behind. Trust your intuition when it tells you there's more. And when the moment comes to choose between staying in the safety of half-light or walking into the unknown for the sake of truth, choose the unknown. Because even when it hurts, truth is the only place where real love and real life can grow. If this message has touched you, take a moment to breathe it in. And if you want more conversations like this, more journeys into the hidden places of the heart, I'd love for you to join this space we're building. Subscribe to Heartnest, and let's keep walking these roads together, one truth at a time.